Hello everyone, with Chloe dropping for the night, I decided to do a career update video on her. First off, let me say, I think Chloe is talented, I want her to go far, I just don't like the way Parkwood is maneuvering her right now. And I know Chloe has some control in her career, but I'll be mainly focusing on her team right now. Some of the things I hate about Parkwood so far: I hate how Parkwood tried to establish a rivalry between her and Normani. I hate how they try to set up a PR relationship between her and Gunna. And their solution to Chloe's colorism problem is laughable. The only thing Parkwood is doing right is getting these endorsements, which is crucial to Chloe right now, given her current career status. She had released 2 modest singles, which underperformed, and many think it's the reason why her debut album is being stalled. Will For the Night be the successful single she needs in order to get her career on track, or will she be locked away in the Columbia Parkwood vault? Let's get into it. Chloe signed to Parkwood Entertainment in the mid-2010s. Fast forward to 2021, she started off her debut era, and the way it's progressing right now, I can't help but see how much of a dumpster fire it is. Which is super aggravating because you have someone with stellar talent, and yet her team isn't guiding her well. At the moment, Chloe is about to drop her single, For the Night, and everyone wants for this to be her new hit. The hit she needs for her debut album to be released and her career to get back on track. But how did Chloe's career get here? Well, I don't have those complex answers, so instead we're going to dive into the major mistakes Parkwood has made to Chloe's career. Mistake number 1. Parkwood's failed attempt at making Normani a rival. Yes, everyone, I believe Parkwood tried to create a rivalry between Chloe and Normani, and then when it failed, gaslit everyone about it. Now, if you don't know, pitting artists as rivals can be successful in terms of marketing. Rihanna versus Beyonce, Nicki versus Bacardi. Artist teams can capitalize off the drama, generate buzz to help sell the music, and to also add to the celebrity allure. Now, you're probably wondering, how they try to pit Normani and Chloe against one another? Well, it started in the fall of 2021. Last year, Chloe started her debut era as a soloist. All throughout the year, she was doing all these cringe sexual performances along with cringe racy social media content. All of this was to garner attention in hopes that people would care to consume her musical content. And her musical content would come that fall. Around late August, Chloe announced that she would be performing at the VMAs, and I remember everybody was confused. This girl hadn't released any music yet. She's going to be on a mainstream platform where no one knows her. I mean, Chloe and Halle did perform in the 2020 VMAs, but they're still relatively unknown. And all the while, Normani still hadn't been invited to perform her top 20 hit. Parkwood was definitely pulling some strings. Now, I have to say that the VMAs aren't the most melanin friendly, and I do place the blame on them for excluding Normani, but MTV is an institution that isn't about the culture. And we already know how the majority of the industry isn't about the culture either, only allowing a few black acts to try to shoot their shot for superstardom. And these chances get slimmer for black female acts. So when the original VMA lineup had 2 black acts, and Chloe being one of them without even a single out, it doesn't put Parkwood or Chloe in a good light. Parkwood, using their power to make sure Chloe took a spot she wasn't winning for, made it look like they did it at the expense of Normani, and thus creating a rivalry. Maybe I'm reaching, but y'all let me know. That's how I interpreted it. I'm assuming Chloe had the power to pass on the opportunity, and in not doing so, it sent the message that she's willing to do anything to get on top, including tear another sister down. It's giving Rachel Berry vibes. Good news came though. 3 days before the VMAs, it was announced Normani would perform after Lorde dropped out. So of course everyone was watching what these girls would bring on the stage, ready to compare the two and subsequently their musical releases afterwards. Prior to this point, there weren't really any real rivalry discussions going on between these two. It was just like little observations. First off, Chloe didn't have a catalog yet, so people mainly pointed out how Beyonce chose her quote-unquote successor out of the two, and that was basically it. And what's interesting was how badly this rivalry backfired on Chloe and how Parkwood tried to end this rivalry. So I feel like Parkwood wanted to end this rivalry for 2 reasons. Normani isn't a good rival. Normani is notoriously inconsistent, and a good rival is someone who is always active, putting out content you can capitalize off of. The second reason was the colorism discourse. As a result of pitting Normani, a dark-skinned girl, against Chloe, a light-skinned girl, it fueled a lot of colorism discussion on Chloe's light-skinned privilege to her detriment, and these colorism discussions is a notable presence in Chloe's career so far. So how did Parkwood go about ending this rivalry? By doing press and spinning the Normani and Chloe comparisons as people trying to pit women against one another. See, it wasn't their fault, it's our fault. We did this. We were pitting 2 of these girls against each other. Shame, shame, shame on us. So going through the myriad of interviews, one stood out. Normani did an interview with BT and they brought up how Chloe was willing to do a collab with her and they asked if she'd be into it. And this was Normani's response. I would love that. She is incredibly talented and it's not every day that Black women who are built like us, who look like us, and have a complexion like ours collaborate together. They often put women against each other, but there's so much room for everyone else. I think it'd be wonderful. The looks would be giving and the vocals would be giving. That part about complexion made me pause. Could this be Normani defending Chloe against light skin privilege criticisms? I don't know. It makes me think Parkwood reached out to Normani's camp and asked for some type of solidarity. Because if you didn't know, this was at the time where people kept saying Chloe's light skin was the sole reason for her success. Because they were comparing her to Normani. And in arguments like those, Chloe didn't come out in the best light. And Chloe can't really come out talking about her privilege because it's a slippery slope where most likely it won't end in her favor. Which brings me to Parkwood failure number 2. Failure at the Chloe colorism discourse. Now let me preface this by saying that I understand how people could think I'm reaching, or maybe they don't agree with my opinions. It's just my opinions. I just want to share them. That's it. If you disagree or think something different, that's absolutely fine. But sometimes I be seeing patterns and stuff and I be connecting dots and I feel like I have to share them. So anyways, the colorism discussions that were happening between Chloe and Normani were constant and sometimes it would flare up into a trending subject on social media. And in these discussions, Chloe would be painted in a bad light, being the fairer of the two, benefiting from her skin tone, in a society that uplifts everything close to whiteness. Parker tried to quell these discussions during the press runs, like I mentioned earlier, but they also made it a point to double down on Chloe's blackness. So while all that was going on, aside from the press runs, Chloe was also presented for a Neutrogena Storyteller Roundtable, where she talked about and showcased films done by women of color, Black women, imagining a world where skin isn't a barrier and lift the voices of the unheard, where she mentioned her struggles, struggles in being a Black girl. They employed a similar tactic during the Have Mercy era, where people kept bringing up Chloe's light skin privileges as a sole reason for success. If you didn't know, Chloe dropped Have Mercy on the same day Ari Lennox dropped her single Pressure. They both were R&B artists, they both had songs that sampled older songs, and they both dropped on the same day. So comparisons were inevitable. Have Mercy did wild numbers in comparison to Ari Lennox Pressure, and people started to mention how Chloe's light skin played a role in her success. Matter of fact, people were dragging Chloe about it so bad that Ari came out to defend her. Seeing a pattern here, Ari defending Chloe against colorism, Normani defending Chloe against colorism. Again, you could be thinking it's a reach. That's absolutely fine. So later on, Chloe returns the favor for these two. Fast forward to a couple of weeks ago, Chloe collabs with Ari on her song Leak It off her new album. Then earlier this month, Chloe went on Twitter Spaces and defended Normani against people calling her lazy and praised her work ethic. She also mentioned how people could kiss their Black asses trying to compare these two artists. So I'm connecting the dots and I'm seeing all this as a tit for tat situation. Ari and Normani helped Chloe out with the colorism stuff, and Chloe has returned the favor, defending Normani and collabing with Ari. Like, why would Chloe bring up Normani? At this time, their comparisons ended a good bit because Normani was in a drought at this time. I know around this time, though, when Chloe went live on Twitter, Normani had some controversy in cursing out a fan, calling her lazy, so maybe she wanted to siphon off some of that attention speaking on the situation. I really don't know, and again, I could be reaching. So now let's pivot to the music side of things. Chloe's past two singles, Tease Me and Surprise, hasn't been successful as her debut single, and it's sad how much pressure she's under to be successful. New artists aren't given the privilege of a mediocre rise, given the time to experiment or to find their artistic identity. Labels want an investment on their return as soon as possible, and they aren't willing to spend money on artistic development. So in a way, Have Mercy going platinum was a blessing and a curse because it set the bar too high for Chloe. And trying to chase the same success, she put out her second single, which was just as explicit as her debut single and also sampled an older song like her debut single. Those numbers didn't do well compared to Have Mercy though. So then she pivots and she goes on live this summer and asks the fans which single they prefer, playing snippets of her unreleased tracks. It was a tie between Surprise and For the Night, but the tie was broken and Surprise was the third single released on June 17th. Mind you, her team thought this was going to be a hit, something that was needed to help promote her album, but Surprise didn't do as well as they'd hope, which is especially concerning since this was her third single and her team was trying to use Beyonce to help promote it, because days before Surprise dropped, Beyonce had announced she was dropping her new album, Renaissance, along with a new single. Then it was buzzing around this news, and I'm sure Parkwood wanted to utilize some of that traction from Chloe, but it didn't work out as planned. Now we're on the fourth single, and I don't know if it'll do well. It's being surrounded by other major releases like SZA, Taylor, and Lil Baby, so hopefully it will get a chance to shine. So here are my final thoughts. I don't like the way Chloe's maneuvering her career. I mainly focus on her team in this video, but I can't ignore Chloe's part in this whole thing. I understand her logic as to why she's doing what she's doing, but when going mainstream, every artist has to decide how much of themselves they're willing to give up in order to be palatable to a large audience. But it's a balancing act. How much of yourself are you willing to give up, and how much of yourself are you willing to retain to get the success that you want? When an artist finds their balance, that's when they find the success. And right now, I think Chloe has given up more than she's retained, which makes me think that she's a complete sellout. And so because of that, I don't think Chloe would get the success that she wants, and it's sad. Okay, so that's the end of my video. Please comment, like, subscribe, and tell me what you think about the whole situation, how Chloe's moving her career. Goodbye.